Happy Monday, everybody. It is the 8th of March, 2021, and we are in session NF. Oh, I forgot to write it on there again. 6. Your ICANN statement is a little bit lengthy today. I can engage collaboratively in a study of text to analyze the structure and to tease out the important details that help to refine the central idea. Now, there's a lot going on with this lesson today, and we might be jumping around a bit. So you're going to have to pay close attention, and you might have to watch this more than once. In class today, we're going to talk about the SIFT process of analyzing poetry. It's a very specific and detailed way to look at a poem and look at its structure. We're going to be using a poem called The New Colossus, a very, very famous poem in America and really around the world. If we have a chance, we're going to look at some common lit work based on the New Colossus as well. You are going to go through the Learn About It, Practice It, and Evidence of Learning for session 6 today. So let's get started because I want to get through this as quickly as I possibly can. Starting with the SIFT process. You do need your notebook out, so if you don't have it out, pause the video and get your notebook. I will wait. Okay, time's up. When we talk about structures of poetry, there are so many different structures and there's so many different things to look at. But when you sift through a poem, it's basically all the same thing. You're looking for similar things. And this is just the literary analysis of the poem, not the structural analysis. So there's a difference. The structure, of course, is how it's built. Think of it as a house. How is the house built? That would be the structural. The literary part is how it's decorated. So this is what you should have in your notebook. And again, pause the video if you need to do that. SIFT T actually means symbol, which is examining the text and the title for symbolism. So what kind of symbols do you see in the poem? Images identify the imagery and sensory details. What can you hear? What can you feel? What can you smell? The senses. Figures of speech, the figurative language. And then tone is the first T and theme is the second T. So we'll talk a little bit about the difference between tone and theme today. Here are some common symbols. You see these all the time, the symbols for male and female. The dove is a symbol of peace. This, of course, is a symbol for poison. These are sort of universal symbols. You see them all the time. People know them. People get them. But in literature, it's a little different. Writers can create new symbols as they work. It might not be a symbol that you would necessarily have thought about. So in literature, it could be an object or a setting, a place, an animal. It could even be another person in the poem. How that item or person or creature functions in the story symbolizes something that they're trying to get across to you. But it's more important than what it actually is. If you see a pair of empty baby shoes sitting in a bassinet, they might symbolize the loss of a child. They're just shoes and it's just a bassinet. But when you put them together in that way, it might be the symbol for the fact that the child has been lost. That's the kind of symbolism we're talking about. Most of you hopefully have heard of the novel Moby Dick, one of the most important novels in our history. And it's about a captain, Captain Ahab, and his fight to find this whale, Moby Dick, who caused great tragedy to Captain Ahab. And the whale, it's a real whale in the book. I mean, it's not like he imagines it. The whale does exist in the book. But the whale represents something else. The whale in the book symbolizes a lot of things for Captain Ahab. Um, his future, his past. It represents how his life changed in the blink of an eye, how that whale caused that change. So it's really a symbol of his life. These are things that are not symbols. A sign that just has one meaning, like the picture there you see, okay? A picture of a cigarette with a circle and line through it, okay? That means no smoking. That's all it means, no smoking. But the white whale doesn't mean just the mystery of evil. This whale, for some reason, and you'd have to read the book, but it's pretty interesting. The whale was after him. The whale was after Captain Ahab. And so it is that evil in the whale that keeps you going in the book. Associations suggested by the writer make the characters in the story, or made by the characters in the story, help you sort of feel what's going on. And that's what's important, is you need to feel. In our case, we're talking about a poem instead of a story, but it's going to be the same thing. Here's how you can see if it is a symbol. They're usually visual, you can see them. And if an event or an object or setting is used as a symbol in the story or poem, you usually find that the writer has given it a great deal of emphasis. You might see it a few times, or it might have a prominent role in one particular part of the story or poem. Symbolism, of course, is part of figurative language, but we're going to get to figurative language later. So we'll talk about metaphors and other figurative language in just a few slides, or a couple of slides, I think. It usually has something to do with the theme. Okay, symbols are usually tied to the theme, the message of the piece. So now we're into the eye and sift. Images and sensory details. Imagery helps promote mood and tone, as in, what do I sense? What do I hear, see, smell, taste, feel? And what effect is the author trying to convey with these images? If they show you an image or describe an image to you, make no mistake, there's a reason for it. It's not there by mistake. It's not there by accident. So after the eye in sift, we're going to go to figurative language. And let's talk about tone and mood first, okay? Tone and mood are, most simply put, the two things that drive the piece. The author sets the tone. The author is the one who will set everything up for you to be prepared to feel a certain way. And that way that you feel as the reader, that's the mood. So the easiest way to remember it is tone is set by the author, mood is felt by the reader. The author is in control. As they write their poem, they are very meticulously putting down words that they think will drive you to feel a certain way. Sort of like the puppet master. Okay, so now let's get to figurative language. You all know figurative language. I'm going to buzz through it really quickly. And again, any time that you need to stop and review a slide, that's fine. Just pause the recording. You have to analyze the figurative language and any devices used in a poem to figure out what the figurative language is and how it's being used. So, of course, we've talked about these several times. We're talking about similes, metaphors, hyperbole, personification, irony, allusion. All of these things show up in almost all writing. I mean, there is figurative speech in all but technical writing. So, similes, comparing two unlike things using like or as. I'm not going to go through this whole slide with you. Metaphor is an implied comparison where one thing is said to be another thing. It's like renaming something. She's a shooting star. She's not really a big ball of gas flying through the sky. It means that she's really on a fast track and doing well. Hyperbole is that exaggeration or overstatement. Like I've told you a million times what hyperbole is. I don't think I could possibly tell you a million times what hyperbole is. I might be able to tell you a lot of times, but because I said a million, I'm exaggerating, and that's what hyperbole is. Personification is assigning those traits that humans have to non-human objects. The rock flung itself through the window. Surely we know that a rock can't do that. Irony is that expression of expecting one thing and getting another. It's that twist. And of course, we have the three different types of irony. So now let's go to the first T, which is theme, and the second T, which is tone. Theme is that main idea coupled with the lesson. So main idea in and of itself is not theme, but it helps contribute to determining what the theme is and how you're going to interpret it. I don't think you're going to need abstract concept too much, but it's good to know. It is represented by a character, and in the case of the new Colossus, you're not going to have a character, but you will have something that you might be able to assign abstract concepts to, even though they're pretty plainly spoken. Generalizing about human conduct is another way of establishing theme. You got to remember, too, that theme is never one word. Love is not a theme. A mother's love for her children is undying. That's a theme. Love is a topic. Okay. That's really important to remember. More often than not, when I talk about theme with students, they want to give me that one word answer. Happiness. Happiness is not a theme. It can't be expressed in a single word. It's not the purpose of the work. It's not why they wrote it. Man versus nature, it's not a theme, it's a conflict. And unlike a moral or a fable, they don't usually say the theme. Like you can go, well, the moral of this story is. Well, they don't do that typically in poetry or in stories. You have to deduce what the theme is. And it's never a cliche. It's never, well, you get what you get when you talk like that. It's not a cliche. Again, you should know how to figure out theme. You need to know what the plot is, what the point is they're talking about. And you need to know all these other things, the conflicts, the imagery, the author's tone. Figure out what the subject is, and then explain it in a couple of sentences. It takes you a while to get to a theme, trust me. In the book To Kill a Mockingbird, an American classic, this book has a subject of racism, and a possible theme for this book would be justice is often withheld from economically deprived racial minorities. Because, of course, the person on trial in To Kill a Mockingbird is it's an African-American gentleman who is being represented by a Caucasian lawyer, but he is being accused of committing a crime against a Caucasian woman. I think it's the woman. No, it's not. It's not. It's a man. I'm sorry. It's a man. And because the defendant not only is a person of color, but is poor, This theme is saying possibly that because you don't have money, you don't get a fair trial. Because you're a person of color, you don't get a fair trial. So that is a possible theme for the book. So let's talk about tone in theme. That's the author's attitude. You can usually tell how the author feels about something, even though they don't come right out and say it. But the way they speak will help you to see their tone. To misinterpret the tone is to misinterpret the meaning or the theme. If you don't get the tone, you don't understand what you read, so read it again. If you miss irony or sarcasm, you might not understand what's going on. If somebody says something that's sarcastic, facetious, ironic, and you take it at its face value, you didn't understand what they said, and you're going to totally misinterpret what's going on. The tone can shift sometimes, but it's usually subtle. Good authors rarely use only one tone, and you're going to see that in our poem as well. Look for the shift in the tone as we read the new Colossus. This is a mnemonic. It's early, I apologize. For remembering how to analyze tone. It's the diction, the images, the details, the language, and the sentence structure. Again, pause this if you need it. All right, so let's get out of this and get down to the meat and potatoes of what we want to discuss today. We are going to talk about a poem called The New Colossus today. And The New Colossus is a poem that was written in the 1800s for a very specific purpose. As you can see in the picture, you see a picture of the Statue of Liberty. That is the new Colossus. I'll tell you that much. That is the new Colossus. Before we begin reading the poem, I want you to know a few things. The meaning of the poem. This poem was written to raise money for a pedestal on which to place the Statue of Liberty. But ultimately, it became a representation of freedom for immigrants as the first thing that they see upon entering America. That should be a period instead of a comma. I apologize. The structure of this poem is a sonnet. You know there are all different structures of poetry. Today we're talking about sonnets, and they're very particular. It's a type of poem with a specific line count and meter. A sonnet is a 14-line poem consisting of an octave, oct meaning 8, right? So 2 quatrains. This gets technical, I apologize. A quatrain, quat means 4. So 2 quatrains make an octave. 4 and 4 are 8, right? Okay. And then 1 sestet, ses meaning 6. So a stanza of 6 lines. So sonnets generally use a meter in their poetry as well. They are 10 syllables known as iambic pentameter. And an iamb is a beat, a syllable. It's actually 2. So an iambic pentameter, penta means 5. There are 10 syllables or 10 beats in a line. So 5 iambs. That doesn't mean 5 words. And again, we'll talk about that when we look at the poem. Here is the poem. And I'm going to read through it one time, and then we'll talk. Well, I'll talk because you can't talk because this is recording. Not like the brazen giant of Greek fame, with conquering limbs astride from land to land. Here at our sea-washed sunset gates shall stand a mighty woman with a torch, whose flame is the imprisoned lightning, and her name, Mother of Exiles. From her beacon hand glows worldwide welcome. Her mild eyes command the air-bridged harbor that twin cities frame. Keep ancient lands your storied pomp, cries she with silent lips. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. the wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these, the homeless, tempest-tossed, to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door. So think for a moment, and again, if you have to pause the recording, do that. Think what this is about. I told you it's about the Statue of Liberty, right? If you know anything about the statue, you know part of what you see at the base of the Statue of Liberty is here. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. So they're comparing this. It's called the new Colossus. And I'm going to skip ahead just a little bit and show you. This is the Colossus of Rhodes. This is the original statue. And the Colossus of Rhodes was supposedly there to defend the waterways and the entryway into Rhodes. He was a warrior. Now, in this poem, it says, not like the brazen giant of Greek fame. If you look at the common lit piece about this, it's going to define a lot of these words. For the sake of time, I'm going to tell you right now, brazen just means bronze. So the Colossus of Rhodes was built out of bronze. He was constructed out of bronze. So brazen just means bronze. Brazen these days has come to mean bold. Either one works. So not like the giant of Greek fame, with conquering limbs astride from land to land. So not like this big statue that's conquering people. This is a mighty woman with a torch. And her name is Mother of Exiles. So while the Greek statue, the Colossus of Rhodes, is more of an intimidating statue, an intimidating representation, the Mother of Exiles is a kind woman welcoming people in. From her beacon hand glows worldwide welcome. Everyone's welcome. Her mild eyes command the air-bridged harbor that twin cities frame, because she's right in the middle of the harbor in New York. Keep ancient lands your storied pomp. I'm sorry, I read that really poorly. Keep ancient lands your storied pomp. So she's talking to the ancient lands. That's basically the old world, Europe. You guys, you keep your storied pomp, your anger and your aggression, and the fact that you think you're too good for everybody, cries she with silent lips. So, of course, the statue doesn't talk. But at the base of the statue, there are these words: give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. So she's saying, we welcome everyone. We welcome the downtrodden. We welcome the poor. We welcome the sick. We welcome the unemployed. We welcome everyone with open hands and open hearts. Your huddled masses. Anybody's welcome in America. Send these, the homeless, tempest-tossed, to me. You don't want them? I'll take them. Bring them here. I lift my lamp beside the golden door. So that torch is a light. So again, here's the statue. What I want you to remember about this poem is that it was written for a specific purpose, but that purpose changed. It was written to raise money to build the pedestal for the Statue of Liberty. But ultimately what happened is it became a poem of freedom and liberty. So the other thing I need to talk to you about as far as the structure of a sonnet, and we haven't talked about this yet. I talked about meter. I've not talked about rhyme scheme. And rhyme scheme is one of those things that I want to say sometimes you either get or you don't get. but I hope that you get it. It's basically how the different lines rhyme with each other. So last week I told you that all poetry, all lines of poetry have a rhyme scheme attached to them. Whether they rhyme or they don't, there's still a scheme. The first line of every poem is always A. So, not like the brazen giant of Greek fame is A, with conquering limbs astride from land to land. Well, land does not rhyme with fame, so we have to assign a second letter to it. In this case, it will be the next letter in the alphabet, B. Here at our sea-washed sunset gates shall stand. Oh, well, stand rhymes with land. And land was a B, so stand must also have to have a B assigned to it. A mighty woman with a torch whose flame, again, flame rhymes with fame, and fame was an A, so flame must also be an A. Is the imprisoned lightning and her name. Oh, flame, name, fame, another A. Mother of exiles from her beacon hand. Well, there we go again. Land, stand, hand. B, right? Glow's worldwide welcome, her mild eyes command. That's another B. The air-bridged harbor that twin cities frame. Again, fame, flame, name, frame, A. But now look what happens. That was the octave. Remember we talked about the quatrains in the octave? That was the first 8 lines of the poem. And now we're going to have a shift. Keep, ancient lands, your storied pomp, cries she. She doesn't rhyme with anything. So we've had A and we've had B, but now we have to add C. With silent lips, give me your tired, your poor. Well, poor also doesn't rhyme with anything, so now we have to assign a D to that. Your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. Rhymes with she, C. The wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Poor, shore, D. Send these, the homeless tempest tossed, to me. C. I lift my lamp beside the golden door. C. Okay, so there's a specific meter to a poem. A, B, B, A, B, B, A. It takes a little practice. It takes a little practice, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so I'm going to show you what you're going to be doing today. All right, so we're going to go through Learn About It, Practice It, and Evidence of Learning very quickly for you today so that you can get started. In the Learn About It section, it talks about sifting through the poem. We just talked about the sift. I showed you that presentation. Go back and look at it if you need to. Here is the poem again. You might want to put your rhyme scheme on here. That might help you. Here's a picture. This is the Colossus. And this is the new Colossus. And here's the poem. We put it on a plaque. It was that important. In your notebooks, I want you to put this chart, and you're going to add some things to it. As you're looking at the poem, I want you to find some different things about the statues. Statue 1 and Statue 2. The Statue 1 is the Colossus, the brazen giant, mild but mighty for Statue 2, because the Statue of Liberty is more nurturing. It's the female image of the nurturer, whereas the male image is more of the warrior. The first statue is Greek. The second statue is American. It's really French, but it was given to America. So I want you to put this chart into your notebook and add any images that you see. If you want to go through the mini lesson from the county, she goes into detail about this chart and shows you what other things to add to it. So that might be a good idea, but make sure that gets in your notebook. And you're going to go on to practice it. And in practice it, you're actually going to sift the poem. So you're going to create a template of the sift, and you are going to finish the template for me. So symbols, examining the title and the text for symbolism. So you're looking for symbolism in the poem. Tell me what that symbolism and what it represents. Images, give me any imagery that they have and what it makes you think about. Figurative language. What figurative language are unusual words or order of words, things that you find that make the poem work. And go through all of these. If you forget what they are, I want you to go back to the presentation and look at what all of these mean, what the S, the I, the F, the T, and the T mean. Okay? Symbolism, imagery, figurative language, theme, and tone. You need to write about all of those. Once you've done all of that, you should have a clear understanding of this poem. And once you have a clear understanding of this poem, you're ready to move on to evidence of learning. And the evidence of learning is a quiz. You can use the poem for the quiz. You're more than welcome to. I expect you to. So this quiz is linked here, and it will take you to a Canvas quiz. So you should get an automatic response on your score. And that is all I have for you to do today. Of course, if you have not finished that Standards Mastery and I Ready, you're way behind and you need to get it done. And other than that, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to let you go until tomorrow. I hope you have a lovely day. T2 out.